changing perspective is good, right? So throughout your video, if you can be keeping people's attention by changing perspective and cutting from POV to direct to camera to, top down, that's great because people stay engaged on that stuff, right? Not to say that a direct talking to camera can't work or a review style video can't work. You can still make those engaging. And like I've talked about this before, like Roy Sutherland talked about this, and I think I shared this with Brian a while back, where it's like, just because something works doesn't mean the exact opposite thing can't also work, right? But yeah, I think the key though is tonality and like congruency. And what I mean by that is if you're going to be cutting between these different scenes, it needs to flow and it needs to feel like it's a cohesive story. So what you don't want to do is cut between, like, if you watch my videos, I never cut between 4K, like my camera setup here, and then like an iPhone video, and then cut back to it, because it's very jarring and it feels like it wasn't shot congruently. So if I'm going to do iPhone videos like over here, the whole thing's going to be shot on an iPhone. So I would just make sure that like the overall kind of style and tone is the same, so it does still feel like it's shot similarly, like in a similar time frame. But yeah, having those cuts is fine. And that also helps with the modular aspect of creative, right? Because it's, hey, I have this core ad, this like chalk, milkshake, dairy-free angle that's working really well. Now I could just knock out a bunch of different hooks, clip them onto the front. I have 8, 10 variations of that I can run. Same thing at the end. If I want to, plug in a different flavor that's working right now, a new special, I can work that into the end and just keep cycling in different offers in the back end, but use the same hook and use the same core ad. I would literally grab chalk and throw it in your blender and like actually make a chalk milkshake to visual. Like that's how I would open visually for it. So yeah, I think just having sections of your ad where you're cutting between different types, where you're like, you are talking direct to camera versus like top down looking in the restaurant, to like interview style, like kind of cycling through different formats. So if you're doing like, interview style creative, how do you make sure the person actually says stuff that makes it good to use for ads? One of my buddies, Ryan Magan, who is probably one of the best at this. If you go to his like Ryan Magin on TikTok and IG, like he's one of the best in the world at this. Definitely recommend everyone follow him. He's a wealth of ideas and content ideas and stuff, especially if you ever decide to do man on the street or interview style, because that's his thing, is interview style. He brought Hormozy on. He's the reason why everyone does captions like that now, the Hormozy style, is because of him. So he sets a lot of trends. We have a JV with him on a few organic properties for our performance business. And the secret for him, what's allowed him to like get all his people to like massive, followers, is the questions. So like really it's hard to script the person's responses, because then in their head, they're trying to remember, like they're trying to memorize stuff. Like you're saying, hey, I'll say this when I say this. And it comes across inauthentic if they feel like there's a script there. And Matt, sorry. So yeah, a lot of it has to do with how you set somebody up. So the questions that you ask them, how you frame it. And so going into it's like, okay, what do I want them to say? Okay, I want them to say X, Y, and Z. Let me back that out of like, okay, well, what question could I ask them that's probably going to get that answer or a similar answer? So I would spend more time focused on the question setup than trying to give them the right answers. And you might need to edit, right? You're not going to do a full 15-minute thing. It's going to be perfect, like flow. It's like they might get a good reaction here, a good reaction there. And you can just clip those pieces up and put it together in one cohesive video that feels right. I would imagine that for this type of setting, a lot of the reaction you're going to want to get is like just like hot ones, like how horrifically, like the reaction, how crazy hot it is. Like somebody coming in with a massive ego, like some jacked, dude that comes in like all tough and stuff, his girlfriend's with them and like ends up crying. That's really what you're going to want to have, because that's going to get the most reactions and people watching it. Not so much like them saying, well, this was, the best jerky I ever had and stuff like that, because people are going to want to test themselves. Well, if you think you're tougher than this guy, I don't have an exact answer, right? Because it's like, it's going to depend on like what you want the outcome to be, what you want them to say.